Hello everyone. Today we will talk about nominal interest rate and effective interest rate. But before going into the nominal and effective interest rate, we need to have very clear understanding about the compounding, about what is compounding. Okay, so let's look compounding through a simple example. Let's say let's say you deposit $100 in a bank. Okay, let's say you deposit $100 into a bank and earn interest of 10% annually. Okay. So after the first year, you will earn $10. Okay, like 10 if you calculate on your calculator, 10% of $100 is $10. Okay. So after 1 year is passed, you will earn the interest of $10. Okay. So your total amount will become $110. Am I right? Okay. So now in the end of first year, you earn the interest of $10 and your total amount has become $110. Okay. So now in the second year, interest will be calculated on the new amount. What is the new amount? New amount is $110. Okay. Now the interest will not be calculated on the original $100. Okay. So let's read this. In the second year, interest is calculated on $110, not just the original 100. So now, how will it be calculated? It will be calculated 10% off 110. Okay, 10% off $110. So how much you will earn the interest in the second year? $11. Okay, if you calculate 10% on your calculator of $110, so you will earn the interest of $11 in the second year. So this will make the total to $121. So after 2 years you earned $21 additional. Okay, 100 you deposited $100 into the bank before 2 years, and now after 2 years your amount has become $121. Okay, so this process of adding the interest to principal and calculating future interest on increased amount is called compounding. Okay, so now so like this adding up process is called compounding. Okay, you calculate the interest on the new amount, not the original amount. Now let's say for example you need to calculate for the third year. Now how will you calculate for the third year? You will simply take your amount. Okay, well now what is our total amount that has after what is the total amount after 2 years? After 2 years, we have the total amount of $121. Okay. And we are earning the interest of 10% annually. Okay. Annually means per year. So 121 into 10%. How much is it? 12.1. Okay. So in the third year, we are earning the interest of 12.1. Okay. $12.1. So now how much amount we will get in total? 121 plus 12.1. Okay. So how much it will be? 121 plus 20.1. So this will be $133.1. Okay, and so on. We will keep calculating our interest for the fourth year, for the fifth year, for the sixth year, whatever. For how many years we want, we will calculate the interest for that. Okay, so this is what we called as compounding. Okay, this is what we called as compounding. So compounding can be done on daily basis, monthly basis, or quarterly basis. Like in the above example, we are doing the compounding annually. Okay. But it can also be done on daily basis. It can also be done on monthly basis. It can also be done on quarterly basis. Okay. Why we are doing that? Because frequent compounding grows money faster because interest is added more often. So obviously, if we add our interest amount into the principal amount more often, so we will grow our money faster, obviously. Okay. So that's why we can also do frequent compounding, daily, monthly, or quarterly basis. We will look at each and every example of this when we study nominal and effective interest rate that is linked to this concept. So we will look at four examples which will clear your concept. Okay. So compounding it's just like a snowball rolling down a hill. It gets bigger and bigger over time as it picks more snow. Okay, like per year you are earning the interest of 10%, for example. So it will keep adding up to your original amount, and the more it is added, the more the amount will become, the more the amount will grow that you initially invested into the bank, $100, right? In the above example. So that's what compounding is. Now let's come on to the nominal and effective interest rate. Okay, so before going on to the formal definition of a nominal and effective interest rate, I would like to explain you the difference between nominal and effective interest rate in easy words. Okay, so for example, nominal rate is like a headline number you see in an ad. For example, you see the advertisement and you see that XYZ bank is offering you interest at 10% annually. Okay. So that's what is called nominal rate. Okay. But what is effective rate? Effective rate shows the true picture, including how often the interest is added. Okay. So effective rate tells us that how many times that 10% will be added. In the advertisement they will tell you that okay now our interest rate is 10% annually and you will be so happy you will visit a bank, but when you visit a bank they will tell you some other charges as well, some other amounts included in the interest as well. So when you see the true picture, when they add up the interest, that's what it is called effective interest rate. Okay, we will look at the example, so you don't need to worry if you can't understand 100% at at this stage. Okay. Okay, so if interest rate is added only once a year, the nominal and effective rates are same. Okay, so obviously if I say you that our interest rate, the bank interest rate is 10% annually. Okay, so they are only adding it once, so our effective interest rate will also be same. Okay, like our effective interest rate will be equal to nominal interest rate. Both will be 10% if they are only adding it once a year. Okay, this is the key point, once a year. But if they're not adding it once a year, they are adding it more frequently, like they are adding it monthly or daily basis or quarterly basis, then the effective rate will be higher. Okay, that's what you need to understand, that if they are adding once a year, then nominal interest rate will be equal to effective interest rate. But if they are adding more than once a year, daily, monthly, or quarterly, then our effective interest rate will be higher. Okay, we will look at the example shortly, so don't worry. Okay, now you can think of this like if you add a sugar to tea only once, okay? If you add sugar to tea only once, okay, it's sweet to a certain level. Okay, it will get sweeter to a certain level. But if you keep adding a sugar several times, it will get sweeter than you first expected. Okay, than you first expected. So that's what our effective interest is like. Okay, I hope you get my point. And we will look at now we will have a look at some examples through which you will get the further clarity in this concept. Okay. Before coming on to the formal before coming on to the formal definitions of nominal interest and effective interest, I would like to explain you some few I would like to explain you this concept through few examples, okay? So that you can understand the definition in a better manner after you are familiar with the example, okay? Okay, now let me show you what the effective rate actually mean. Okay, so for example, now you understood the concept of compounding. So, for example, we have the principal amount of $100. Okay, okay, let's just not use the dollar sign here. So we have the principal amount of $100. Okay, and our interest rate is 10% quarterly. Okay, our interest rate is 10% quarterly. Okay, so now let's calculate what our amount will become after 1 year. Okay, how much our amount will become after 1 year. Okay, so how do we calculate? If we do not use the formula of effective interest rate, if we do not use the formula, sorry, I think there is some voice issue, so I hope it's clear now. Okay, so our interest rate is 10% quarterly. What does it mean? I just told you that if your interest is calculated or added more than once a year, so it is called as effective interest rate. Okay, but if it is added only once a year, so that's our nominal rate. We just studied here, right? Let me show you this one. If interest is added only once a year, the nominal and effective rates are same. But if it's added more frequently, like monthly, daily, or quarterly, then effective rate will be higher. Okay, that's what I explained you just. So if they are telling us that interest rate is 10% quarterly, this means that our effective interest rate will be higher than nominal rate. Our effective interest rate will not be 10%, will not be equal to nominal rate. Am I right? So we need to calculate our effective interest rate here. Okay, we need to calculate our effective interest rate here. Okay, our nominal is 10%. That's not a problem. Okay, our nominal rate is 10%. So we need to calculate our effective interest rate. Okay, so how do we calculate? How do we calculate? Actually, we do have a formula for calculating the effective interest rate. Okay, actually, we do have a formula. So what's that formula? Okay, let me show you. Okay, our formula is 1 plus r divided by n, bracket close, to the power n minus 1. Okay, that's our formula. We need to calculate the effective interest rate through this formula. Now, R is our interest rate, okay, given in the question. So our interest rate is 10%, right? R is our interest rate and N is our number of period. Okay, N is our number of period. N is our number of period. So tell me, how many quarters do we have in a year? How many quarters do we have in a year? They are telling us that they are calculating the interest rate at 10% quarterly. So how many quarters do we have in a year? Obviously, we have 4 quarters. So our n will be how much? N will be 4, okay? Because we have 4 quarters in a year. And our interest rate is 10% as mentioned above. So R will be 10%, okay? Or 10%, or we can say it as 0.10, okay? So using this formula, we need to calculate our effective interest rate. I hope that's clear. We need to calculate our effective interest rate using this formula. Okay. But before doing that, let me show you one thing. Okay. Now, using this formula is a shortcut for us. They had made life easier for us. But there is one long way as well. If we simply, let's say that, okay, let me show you through an example. We have, as I said, we have $100 and interest is calculated 10% quarterly, okay? This information, okay? So what if we do quarterly? What if we calculate quarterly? Instead of just using this formula, what if we just calculate the amount after 1 year quarterly? Okay, we can do that as well. Let me show you, okay? Okay, so for the first year, how much our interest amount will be? How much will be our interest amount? $100 multiplied by 0.10, right? 0.10. How much it is? 10. Okay. So for the first year, how much will it become? How much our amount will become after 1 year? It will become 110, right? Sorry. This is not the amount after 1 year. This is the amount after 1 quarter. Okay. This is 110 is the amount after 1 quarter. Okay. 110 is the amount after first quarter, right? So now let's calculate what will be our amount after second quarter. Okay, let's see. Now 110, the new amount, multiply 10%. How much will it be? It will be 11. So we will add our $11 to 110. How much our amount will become after second year? After second year, it will become 121. Okay, our amount will become 121. After first year, it was 110. Okay, sorry, my bad. After first quarter, I mean, okay, after first quarter. And in the same way, this one is for after second quarter. We are calculating it quarterly, right? Because 10% is the interest rate quarterly. Okay. Now, what will be our amount after third quarter? Now let's calculate the interest again. So we will calculate our interest on the new amount, 121 into 0.10. So our interest will be 12.1 for the third quarter. So how much our amount will become? 121 plus 12.1. So this will become 133.1 after third quarter. Okay. This is the longer way of calculating our amount after 1 year. Okay. Third quarter. Okay. Now let's calculate the amount after fourth quarter. Okay. So we will take our interest on the new amount, 133.1 into 10%, 0.10. So this will be 13.31. We will add our 13.31 to 133.1 plus 13.31. Okay, so this will become 146.41 after fourth quarter. After fourth quarter means after 1 year, our amount will become $146.41. Okay, now that's the longer way of calculating what our amount will be after fourth quarter. Now let me show you how do we calculate this exact amount using our effective interest rate. Because if we take out what our effective interest rate, then we just need to calculate the amount after 1 year through our effective interest rate. We can, so if we know our effective interest rate, then we can we can reach to this amount after 1 year through our effective interest rate. Okay, so how do we calculate effective interest rate? Let's use the formula and calculate effective interest rate. Okay, so now what's our formula? 1 plus, what is our R? R is 0.10. Okay. 1 plus 0.10 divided by number of periods, and number of periods are our 4, because we have 4 quarters in a year. So n will be 4. We will close the brackets here, and to the power n is our 4, so to the power n minus 1. So um, I think, let me check the answer. Okay, sorry, we have done this type mistake here. Let's use the formula again. 1 plus r. What is our r? R is our interest rate, 0.10. Okay, we need to divide it by n, but we only divide it by n if the annual interest, sorry, if the interest rate is given annually. Okay, interest rate is given 10%, but it is already given as quarterly. It is quarterly interest rate. So we do not need to divide it by n. We only divide it by n if our interest rate is given as 10% annually. Like for example, if they mention here that, okay, let me tell you, this is very important thing as well. So let me tell you, give me a moment. If they tell you that interest rate is 10% annually, okay, here they mention that interest rate is 10% annually. So then what happens is that you need to divide r divided by n. Okay, you need to divide by n, and our n will be our n will be how much? Our n will be 4, because we have 4 quarters in a year, and they have given us the 10% for yearly. Okay, so if they give us for the yearly, then we need to divide it by 4, because we need it for quarterly. But for now, in this example, they had given 10% quarterly, so we do not need to divide it by n. Okay, we do not need to divide it by n. I hope that's clear. I will talk further about this in the video. Okay, so let's move. Let's solve this example now. For now, 1 plus 0.10, and we close the brackets. We are not dividing it by n because the interest rate is already given as quarterly. Okay, we are not dividing it by n, and we take to the power 4. Okay, we have 4 quarters and minus 1. So it will give us 0.4641. So our interest rate is how much? We can say it as 46.41%. So our interest rate is 46.41%. Okay. So if we add up 100 into 46.41%, how much it is? Let me see. It is 46.41. Okay. If we add up 46.41 $46.41 into our principal amount, which is $100. So how much will it give us? It will give us, sorry, let me do not use a dollar sign here. Okay, $46.41 plus 100 will give us 146.41. Okay, I hope that's clear to you. Okay, so we will get 146.41 using effective interest rate. So we got the same answer as we got through compounding. Okay, but we performed longer steps in compounding to reach at this answer. But for but if we use the effective interest rate formula, then we just need to know the effective interest rate, and then simply we will multiply our principal amount of $100 multiply with 46.41%, and we get $46.41. Okay, we will add up that $46.41 in our principal amount, which is 100, and we get $146.41. Okay, so I hope it's clear that what does it mean, and what does the compounding mean, and how do we calculate effective interest rate through a formula, through a shortcut. Okay. Now let me give some examples so that your concepts get more clear related to this, okay? Now let's discuss some examples. Okay, so for example, we are talking about this, okay? We will talk about this one. So, number one, let's talk about a number one example. Simple versus frequent compounding. Okay. Imagine two banks offering different compounding frequencies. Bank A nominal rate is 12% compounded annually. Okay. Bank A is offering you interest on 12%. It is compounded annually. Compounded annually means that it is only compounded once a year. Okay, it only means that compounding once a year. So what happened is effective interest rate will be equal to nominal rate because I told you that if it is compounding only once a year, then your effective interest rate is equal to your nominal interest rate. So that's what it is written here. Just read this. Okay, just read this. Since compounding happen only once a year, the effective rate will be equal to nominal rate, which is 12%. Okay. Now, for the Bank B nominal rate is 12%, but it is compounded and monthly. Okay, this one is compounded monthly. Remember this. This one is compounded monthly. Okay, so what does the compounding monthly means? It means that our effective interest rate will be higher than nominal interest rate because I told you above that if it is compounded more than once a year, then your effective interest rate will be higher than nominal rate, right? So just read the answer and you get the point. Here, interest rate is added every month, so the effective rate will be higher than 12%, obviously. Okay, I explained this to you above. Okay. So now, how much will our interest rate will be? We know one thing that it will be higher than 12%, but how much will it be? How much will it be? We need to use the same formula for calculating effective interest rate, okay, where R will be 12% and N will be 12 because this interest rate is given monthly. Okay, 12% is given monthly. So our N will be 12 because there are 12 months in a year, right? So our N will be 12 this time. So we will use the formula and our answer will be 12.68% effective interest rate. Okay, 12.68% will be our effective interest rate after using this formula. Okay, how do we use the formula? Same way, 1 plus 0.12 divided by 12. We need to divide it by 12 this time. Why? Why we need to divide it by 12? Because this time they have given us 12%. 12% is the interest rate of annually, okay? They did not tell us that 12% is quarterly interest or monthly interest or what. Okay, so if they do not mention about that, so we will assume that 12% is our annual interest. Okay, but we need it for monthly because we are compounding it monthly. So we need to divide 12% by 12 to get the monthly interest rate. Okay, let me just show you once again about this here. For example, if they tell you that okay. Now tell me that what's the difference between these two statements? What the difference between these two statements? The difference between the two statements is that here they're here they are telling us that in this one, in the first statement, they're telling us that interest rate is 10% compounded quarterly. They're talking about compounding. They're talking about compounding quarterly. Okay, they're not telling us that 10% is quarterly rate. They're not telling us that 10% is quarterly rate. They're just telling us that it is compounded quarterly, but they did not tell us that 10% is quarterly rate. So we will assume that if they do not tell us that 10% is quarterly rate, so we will assume that it is annual rate. Okay, 10% is our annual rate. And in the second case, they are telling us that interest rate is 10% quarterly. They're simply telling us that it is a quarterly rate. They're not talking about compounding quarterly. They're telling that interest rate is 10% quarterly. Simply, they are telling us that 10% is a quarterly rate. So here the 10% will be quarterly rate. So please understand the difference. Hmm. Okay, so you need to understand the difference. Please have a look at this. No, that's what I told you here, right? Now let's go back to our example. Okay. Now, what they're telling us in the example is that um, they're telling us that 12% compounded monthly. Okay. So this 12%, they're not telling us that this 12% is a monthly rate. So obviously, then we will assume that this 12% is an annual rate. So when this 12% is an annual rate and they are compounding it monthly, so we need to divide this 12% by n, by number of months in a year. Okay, because this 12% is not a monthly rate, it is an annual rate. So that's why I need to divide it by 12. Okay, but what if, let me show you one more thing. What if they tell you that this 12% interest rate is monthly? Okay, what if they tell you that 12% is a monthly interest rate? Okay, in this example, if they tell you that 12% is a monthly interest rate, then you do not need to divide it by n. Simple. Because why we are dividing it by n? Think. Why we are dividing it by n? We are dividing it by n because we need a monthly interest rate, because they are telling us that it is compounded monthly. So obviously we need monthly interest rate for monthly compounding, right? Obviously we can't use annual interest rate for a monthly compounding. So I hope now you are clear with the concept. Okay. Now let's move to our example number two. Okay. Now we are talking about this example number two. Okay. I hope you can see on your screens the highlighted portion. Okay. So now our example number two is that daily compounding. Okay. A real life credit card example. Suppose a credit card has a nominal interest rate of 18% annually. Okay. They are telling us that 18% is our annual rate. Okay. Understand this. They are telling us that interest rate is 18% annually, but interest is compounded daily. Okay. No, 18% is our annual interest rate, but they are compounding it daily. But they are compounding it daily. So what do we need to do? How do we calculate the effective interest rate? Obviously, we will use the formula, but stop the video here. Think that do we need to divide it? Do we need to divide the interest rate by n or not? Do we need to divide? Yes, we need to divide. Yes, we need to divide because this 18% interest rate is annually and we need to do compounding daily. So we need a daily interest rate. We need per day interest rate. We need per day interest rate. And this interest rate is annually. Both the things should be same. So yes, we need to divide it by n so that we get the interest per day. Okay, so I hope now you are getting the concept. Okay, now let's solve this using the formula. So our formula will be you need to be careful within the brackets using on the calculator because if you do not use the brackets correct way, you will not get the right answer. Okay, so use the formula 1 plus 0.18 and we will divide it by 365. Why we will divide it? I clearly told you above that why will you divide it by 365 because 18% is our annual interest rate and we need to compound it daily. So we need a interest rate per day. So that's why we are dividing it by 365 and to the power 365 because we have 365 days in a year equal to 19.72% will be our interest rate. So now we are moving towards the third example. So this is our example number three. I hope you can see on the screen the highlighted portion. So now they're telling us that loan offers with a different compounding periods. We are comparing a loan one and loan two. Okay, so for the loan one, 8% nominal interest rate is given and it is compounded quarterly. And for the loan two, 7.9% nominal rate is given and it is compounded monthly. So how do we solve this? Now pause the video, try this yourself and take out what is the effective interest rate. Okay, what is the effective interest rate? That's what we need to calculate. So I hope you got the right answers. Now let's solve this using the formula. So 1 plus for the loan one, we are calculating it for the loan one first of all. So how do we calculate? 1 plus R, how much is our R? 0.08%. Okay, divided by, will we divide it by N or not? Tell me, will we divide it by N or not? We will not divide this because 8% nominal interest rate compounded quarterly. They did not tell us that 8% is a quarterly rate. Okay, so what we need to assume is that this 8% is an annual rate. I think I explained this to you in very detail in the above examples, right? So we do not need to divide this 8% by n because we will assume that this 8% is an annual interest rate and we need it quarterly interest rate because they're compounding it quarterly. Okay, so we need to divide it by 4 because there are 4 quarters in a year. So bracket close and to the power 4 because n is our 4. So n minus 1. Okay, minus 1 will give us the answer 8.24%. 8.24%. Okay. Okay, there was a slight mistake in the above formula. We did not subtract 1 from the example number 3. Sorry, example number 2. We use the formula. Our answer is correct, but we need to subtract 1 in the formula. Okay, so minus 1. Okay, we need to use the correct formula. Only then we will get this 19.72. Okay, and in example number 1, we use it rightly, so that's not a problem. Okay, so for the third example, law number 1, our effective interest rate is 8.24%. Okay, so now for law number 2, How do we calculate for the law number two? Okay, law number two, they are telling us that 7.9% nominal interest rate compounded monthly. So how do we calculate? Now, do in this, do we need to divide it by n, or do not need to divide it by n? 7.9%, they're not telling us that 7.9% is a monthly interest rate. They're just telling us that it is compounded monthly, but they're not telling us that 7.9% is our monthly rate. So do we need to divide it by n? No, we do not need to divide it by n, because we will assume that this 7.9% is our annual interest rate. Okay, sorry. We need to divide it by n. Obviously, we need to divide it by n, because we will assume that this 7.9% is our annual interest rate, and they are compounding it monthly. So obviously, we need to divide it by 12 to get the monthly interest rate. Okay, so 1 plus 7.9% is how much? Okay, 0.079. Okay, we need to divide it by 12 because there are 12 months in a year. It is compounded monthly, so we are dividing it by 12. Our n will be 12. Okay, bracket close, and to the power 12 minus 1, we will get the answer. If you calculate if you calculate this rightly, so you will get the answer 8.18%. Hmm. Okay, now let's solve the last example of today's video. Hmm. Okay, in this example number 4, I hope you can see it on the screen. So in example number 4, they are asking us, sorry, wait a second. Okay, so in example number 4, they are asking us your investment grows to, okay, what does it mean? Grows to after first year. Okay, they are asking what will be our amount after first year? How much will our investment would be grown after 1 year? Okay, so they're telling us that you invest 10,000 at a nominal interest rate of 10%, but it is compounded weekly. Okay, weekly means 52 weeks in a year, because there are 52 weeks in a year, so it will be compounded 52 times in a year. Okay, so if we compound it, if our interest rate is 10% and we are compounding it weekly, so obviously we need to know the effective interest rate first. Why we need to know the effective interest rate? Because obviously you know that if they are compounding it more than once a year, obviously, so our effective rate will be higher than nominal rate. You know this, okay, from I taught you above. Okay, so we need to know our effective interest rate before we can tell that how much will our investment grow after first year. So what will be our effective interest rate? First of all, effective interest rate. Okay, so we will use the formula in the same way. 1 plus, what is our R? 0.10. Okay, will we divide it by n or no? Okay, 10, they're telling us that it is 10% compounded weekly. So they're not telling us that this 10% is an annual rate. Okay, so we need to assume that this 10% is a, and sorry, sorry. They're not telling us that this 10% is a weekly interest rate. Okay, so we will simply assume that this 10% annual is the annual interest rate. Okay, because specifically they are not mentioning here that this 10% is a weekly interest rate. So obviously what we are gonna do is that we will assume that this 10% is a annual interest rate, and to get the weekly interest rate we need to divide it by 52. Okay, so we divide it by 52 because we have 52 weeks in a year. Okay, we will close the bracket here to the power 52, because n is our 52. We have 52 weeks in a year, and minus 1, you will get the effective interest rate 10.51%. Okay, if you calculate this rightly on your calculator, you will get 10.51%. Okay, now they are asking that your investment grows to after first year. How much will your investment be after first year? Okay, how do we calculate that? Simply that 10,000 into into 10.51% is how much? Okay, and just calculate this on calculator. Okay, it is 10. Okay, so 10,000 into 10.51% will be 1051. So this 1051 will be added to the principal amount. Our principal amount was 10,000. So we will add this 1051 and we will get 11051. Okay, so this 11051, this is the amount to which our investment will grow after first year. This is the answer. That's how we calculate. Okay. Now, what if instead of if they do not compound it weekly, okay, instead they compound it annually. Okay, let me write here. If it were compounded annually, and compounding it annually means that they're compounding at nominal rate, because if the compounding is done only once a year, then you know that it is a nominal rate equal to effective interest rate. Okay, so compounding it only once a year means nominal rate. Your investment will only grow to how much? Your investment will grow to how much? If they're not compounding it weekly, instead they are compounding it annually. Like if the compounding is done only once a year, so how much will the investment will grow to? Now we can use the formula. No, in this we just need to calculate on a nominal interest rate. So how will calculate? Okay, let's see. 10,000, which is our principal amount. Okay, we just need to multiply this with 1 plus our interest rate is 0.10 nominal interest rate. Okay, just do this on a calculator and you will get the amount 11,000. Okay, so that's how you this is there is no specific formula, but you can use this way. Okay, like just multiply the principal amount. Okay, principal amount multiply 1 plus r. Okay, this is the formula. Principal amount into 1 plus r. If you are compounding it once annually, so your nominal interest rate will be equal to annual interest rate. Okay, so our effective interest rate will be also 10% in this example. So just use this formula if you're compounding it annually instead of weekly. So our investment will only grow to 11,000. Okay, so you see the difference? You see the difference? Like if you're only compounding it once a year, so your investment is only growing to 11,000. Okay. Mm. But if you are compounding it weekly, then your investment is growing to 11,051. Okay, that's the difference. So, I hope you are absolutely clear with the concept of nominal interest rate and effective interest rate. Just read these formal definitions of nominal and effective interest rate. I hope you are now clear with every concept, so this definition won't be a problem for you. So, thank you so much for watching this video, and please share this video for anyone struggling with this concept of nominal interest rate and effective interest rate. Please share the video with the relevant people. And if you have any query, any doubt in any specific question of any level, please feel free to contact me through my email or WhatsApp number. Thank you so much.